Hi, everybody. Good morning and good afternoon. I hope you are all fine. Welcome to this Q&A session on Care Climate Smart PIIRS indicators. I'm Aurélie Senos. I'm part of the Climate Change and Resilience platform as adaptation specialist. And I will co-facilitate this session with Julie Capel here. Julie, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hello. Yes, hi, I'm Julie Capel. I'm working for Care Netherlands as a program assistant. And I've been also involved in the CCRP in the last year in climate smart activities and part of the green team here. So happy to be here.
Thank you, Julie. And Edel is also here with us, Edel Euven. She's new to our climate change and resilience platform, and she will be the one leading on those Care Climate Smart PIIRS indicators in a few weeks because she's just joined. So Edel, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Edel. So I just, as Aurélie already mentioned, I just entered into the CARE family, and I'm looking forward to work with you all on climate smart indicators and with the green teams. So thank you.
Thank you, Edel. So I'm recording this session. I hope it's all fine. For all of you, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box so that we know all of you with your name and like first name and position and care office. This session is a question and answer session, so I won't present in detail the climate smart indicators. So we'll just run through them for 5 minutes, and then we are here to answer your question. Just as a background information, we developed those indicators because we know that climate change is one of the greatest threats to humanity. There are also other threats as well, right? But it's one of the biggest. And we are already working a lot with the most vulnerable people to be able to face those impacts. Though we are all responsible individually and as an organization to reduce our emission if we want to limit the tremendous impact on the most vulnerable people. So, and CARE is doing also some advocacy for government to reduce their emissions. So it's important for CARE to walk the talk. So that's why we developed those indicators as a first step to measure our emissions, our greenhouse gases emission. And then we hope that we will be able to at the same time reduce them as much as possible. In terms of indicators, there are a few things that we are following as CARE. We are following the greenhouse gases emission from flight. That's the first type of emission we are following. From vehicle use, from office energy consumption, and then the last part of the indicator that we are asking you to fill is the measures your office is taking to reduce and or offset emission. So that's the 4 categories of things you need to report on. I'll just go through very quickly the different things we are asking country offices to report on. I have put just a screenshot of the new PIIRS system, like online PIIRS system, because those indicators are part of the country form, former country form that you were supposed to fill in, and so it has been digitized, and so you will have to fill everything online. So that's how it will look like this year. And so for flight, we are asking you a few things. The total number of flights, and it needs also to be disaggregated by number of flights under 2 hours, equal or under 2 hours, and the number of flights over 2 hours, and the total number of hours for all flights. And we are also asking you to give the total amount of GHG emissions, so greenhouse gases emission, in ton equivalent CO2. The unit is quite important because different calculators can give different units, right? It can be in ton of carbon or in ton of CO2 or in ton of CO2 equivalent, which means that other greenhouse gases are taken into account for the calculation. So that's for flight. And then we have vehicle use, where we are asking the number of liters of either gasoline, diesel, or other fuel that has been consumed over the year. And there is a part on offices energy consumption. So where we are asking you to report on electricity, in kilowatt, the CO2 intensity in grams of your energy system, which is for people who are on the grid mostly, the number of liters of gasoline, diesel, or other fuels that are consumed by generators, and the number of cubic meters of gas consumed as well. And from that, we can derive the emission, we calculate the emissions. And then there are a ticking box exercise where you need to tell us which kind of action you're taking in terms of awareness raising, application of alternatives measure to reduce emission, application of reduction target, application of carbon budget, offsetting emission internally or externally for each type of emission, like for flight travel, for vehicle use, or for offices energy consumption. So that's how the indicators are set up. It's very, very quick. And so you have a guidance note that has been developed where we are explaining the steps that you need to take to fill out these indicators, and with like some formula or some software that can help you to calculate emissions, etc. So yeah, here it is. And sorry. And maybe one other thing is that you have this guidance note, but we also have online on the Care Wiki, the mail one. We also have a Q&A, question and answer document that you can consult, where we have listed all the questions that were asked by you or by your colleagues last year during those presentations, and it's all in that document, and we can share the link again after the call. So I'll stop here because the idea is really answering your question, and yeah, please free to either raise your hand directly or just unmute yourself and ask your question, or pose your question in the chat box. I see. Is there any changes in the form from last year? No, there was no changes in the form. The only change is that it has been digitalized, so it looks a bit different, but the questions are exactly the same. And maybe one important thing, the main changes is last year it was compulsory only for CMPs, though quite a lot of office made the effort to already fill those indicators, but this year it's compulsory for everybody. I see Pratibha's hand up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to tell, I have a concern regarding the fuel consumption for vehicle use.
Yeah.
We do maintain a logbook on fuel consumption for our office vehicles, but regarding the rental vehicle used for traveling to field and so, I don't think we have that sort of information on this. So how do we capture that? That's one thing. And another, for the fuel consumption, the office energy consumption, does the cooking gas also include in that fuel or not? That's my two concerns. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Pratibha. Yeah, we realize that sometimes it's a bit difficult to follow the some indicators. So indeed, it's important to find a way to integrate the liters of liters of consumption of rented vehicles. So you can either ask this information to the rental company, if possible. It might be also something that you include in your contract, that in the invoice they specify that, so that you have it somewhere, and then it can be then calculated every 6 months or at the end of the year, so that you can have a record. But it's part of the scope normally. So ideally, you need to put that in. I realize that we are at the end of the year, so if it has not been done this year, then it will be difficult to report. So you won't be able to put them this year, but it will be important to make the changes to add this information next year, if possible. And sorry, I forgot the second question.
The cooking gas.
Yeah, the cooking gas is also part of it, right? It's all the gas consumed by the office, so either for eating purposes or cooking.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see the hands up from Ebne. Ebne Said.
This is Imtiaz. Thank you. Actually, my question is similar with Pratibha, the first question, and thanks for the answer. And actually, in our country, we don't keep actually the exact numbers of the flight numbers. So what we did last year, that we have an approximate number of flights from 2 hours to 2 hours plus. So is this okay, or we need to be exact? That's the actually, because we don't, our admin team don't keep the exact numbers of the flights, so it's really tough to. So we have an assumption like around 50 flights.
Yeah, it was. Imtiaz, I'm not sure I heard everything perfectly because of the sound, but your question is, you were saying that it's difficult to have the number of flights, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. We realize that because like mostly the agencies are giving sometimes the emission, and they are not like the number of flights under 2 hours and number of flights over 2 hours needs to be calculated by ourselves. And in the guidance note, we are encouraging people to have their own Excel document where they follow the different flights, so that they can disaggregate this information. It might be seen as extra work, and it's a bit of extra work, that's for sure. But it's also helpful in terms of sensitization of the staff and awareness of their emission, right? Because if you leave all this calculation to the end of the year and only to your travel agencies, then you're not like looking over like during the year if you are emitting more than last year, what is the trend, etc. So if you do that internally, it's a bit more work indeed, but then it's also a good way to start reducing your emission and being aware of them. So yeah. I see other ends up, so maybe T. Veldman. I'm not sure what the first name is.
Yeah, hello, this is Charlotte Veldman from Care Netherlands. Yeah, we have a question also about the CO2 emission calculation, because we were wondering why you have chosen for atmosphere. Well, a lot of agencies are using another type of calculation, the CO2, like Amadeus or Galileo. So we were wondering why, because for us it is a lot of work to adjust the data that we get from the travel agency to the atmosphere calculation.
Yeah. So yeah, we do recommend to use atmosphere if possible, or a calculator that uses kind of like a similar methodology. And why? It's because atmosphere, we check how they are calculating their emission, and they are integrating all the greenhouse gases emission and the fact that emissions are happening high in the atmosphere, which has like a bigger it involves like bigger emission. And if you compare sorry, can you all mute yourself? I'm sorry, I'm not seeing. Okay. Sorry. And for example, some travel agency, they will say that one Paris, New York flight is 1 ton of emission, and other agency will say it's like 2 or 4, right? There could be huge differences. And so we are now analyzing the data from previous year, and we are seeing that not all offices have used atmosphere or like an equivalent methodology. And so we have offices with like 900 flights and same amount of emission than offices that have 200, right? So there might be a huge difference, and we want to be able to compare data and to also report the real emission, full emission. So we know it's extra work, but if you're using another calculator, feel free also to reach out to Edel to see if the calculation methodology is a bit similar and if we can keep using it, or if you need to readjust the number, right? Because if the difference is not that big, then it might be a possibility, right?
Yeah, thank you. I also had another question.
Yeah.
If you are looking at the vehicle fuel, does that also include like the commute from home to work?
No, we excluded that from the scope because it was it could be part of the scope of calculation of emission for one company or one organization, but we excluded it because it was quite a lot of extra work for most offices. So yeah, it has been excluded.
Yeah, that's true. And the last question that I have is about the COVID-19 situation, because you can imagine that this year we didn't have so many flights after March. So how are you going to, are you also going to report on that in your PIIRS data?
Yeah, I guess we are now analyzing the data from previous year. We are a bit late, and then we will have the data from FY20 that will likely be a bit less without doing any reduction measure, but because of COVID situation. So it will be acknowledged in the report, and for sure, I guess we won't take FY20 data as a reference year to set a production target, because it would be tough. It's not really a normal year, right?
Thanks.
You're welcome. Prativa, you still have your hands up. I'm not sure if it's the old one or a new one. Okay, I assume it's an old one. I'm seeing a question in the chat from Alfred from Nigeria. Last year, I was concerned about calculation of carbon emission from UNHAS helicopter services in location where security doesn't allow vehicles movement. Do we have a way to calculate this now? So no, we don't. We have kind of excluded that from our scope because there is no like easy calculator for helicopter services, and so we are not finding an easy way. So we are not putting in that in there. But if someone finds a way to do it, please reach out to us, because we are not aware of all possible calculation on that. So still excluded for this year. Also for COs that shows high trend of carbon emission from last year. Sorry. What recommendation do you have for them? So there might be different reasons for a high trend of carbon emission, but they're depending on where the emission come from. If it's from flight, we really recommend to sensitize your staff. And also there are some offices that, for example, have in travel authorization, you need to calculate what will be the emission of your flight. And so it might encourage people to see that as one of the decision criteria. So it might be helpful. Also, there are a lot of training out there about green fleet management for all the vehicles, and how you can have like more efficient vehicles. So it could also be like a criteria when you decide which vehicle to buy. CO2 emission can be one of the criteria. Also, how to pull people together in cars, but I'm assuming you're already doing that. But also how you drive your car. Like if you're driving it like a bit softly, it creates less emission than if you're driving very fast, for example, etc. So there are some advice that could be given on that, and training out there that we can recommend. And if emissions are coming from office consumption, depending on if you're renting or if you own the place, then going for solar panel to have some, or to provide some of the energy might be a way to reduce energy, but also reducing the consumption itself, having very efficient materials, so IT, computers, etc., or fridge, depending. So yeah, do not hesitate to reach out to us if you want more ideas. And as part of Edel's job as well, she will set up kind of a group of exchange for the green teams, or the people who are interested in reducing, support the reduction of emission. So she will reach out to you soon about that, so that we can create a group of exchange on those topics. I see a question, and then Jay, I'll respond very quickly at the question in the chat, and then give you the floor. About the number of flights, if it is a 2-hour flight, would it fall in category of under 2 hours or above? It will fall under 2 hours. It's in the Q&A, but indeed it was under 2 hours. When would be the deadline for each CEO to submit the report? Maybe Jay, you can ask your question and answer this one, because I'm not exactly sure of the deadline for PIIRS data this year.
So the deadline is going to be the end of September. Yeah. So we're just finalizing a couple of things that need ironing out with the online reach system. And assuming all is good, we will launch either today or Monday. And that will give people a full 2 months to submit. My question is about if your office is in a building with other people, and you're essentially renting a small amount of space in that building. In an ideal world, I presume you kind of approach the owners of the building and try and get the details of electricity or gas or other emissions related to the office from them, and then calculate how much of the floor space you operate. If you can't do that, do you just leave it blank and say, sorry, we can't do this?
Yeah, indeed, that's in the guidance notes. We put this formula about having the total amount of consumption for the whole building, and then dividing per the area you are using. And if you can't access it at all, then we don't encourage people to just put a random number. We don't have a proxy about, like, for example, usual consumption of like 40 square meters. Building or like office. So yeah, please leave it blank if you don't know, and reach out to us to tell us that, and especially to Edo, because she will be the one compiling the information, so she also might be able to help see if there are other solutions. But yeah, because consumption might vary a lot, like average consumption might vary a lot from one place to another, even within a country, it's very difficult to give an average. You still have your hands up, Jay, so I'm not sure if you want to add a point or it's okay. Okay. I'm seeing two questions in the chat. Based on the analysis of carbon emission, will there be any plan to develop carbon budgeting and setting targets for CMP, CEOs, offices? Yes, we are. So we are doing the analysis of the data right now, and normally you should have the report from last year by, I guess, around September, end of August or beginning of September, around those dates. And based on that, so every office has the right and can really set up their own target and like carbon budget or etc. So it's up to all office to do that. But at the same time, at CARE International level, we are trying to see if we could set up a global target, and that's discussion ongoing at the NDs level. So I can't say if they will do it or they won't, but it is something that CCRP is pushing for, having a global target or a compulsory target for each office, at least CMP office that are emitting most for those three indicators for now. And I see also a question about, can you please emphasize the 6 compulsory indicators again? And because we are out of time, I'm just very quickly saying that we have indicators on flights about the number of flights under 2 hours, under or equal to 2 hours, and above the number of flights over 2 hours of time, the total numbers of hours of flight, and the total numbers of flights, which is around the same type of information, and the total amount of greenhouse gases emission. And then you have an indicators for vehicle use about the number of liters of fuel used, and then a few indicators for offices energy, and then a checklist about the action that you are already implementing. The idea of knowing the action is just to encourage people to do more, and also to have an idea of what are the action that can lead to the highest level of reduction. So you have all this action. A small reminder before we close the session. So you have a guidance note that is quite detailed with a lot of formula there. Please look at that if you have any question, and then do feel free to reach out to us for further confirmation, clarification. We are here for that. And you also have the Q&A document that is out there. And before the session, I also shared the recorded webinar from last year, where we explain in details every steps. So you can, it's still true that the question have not changed, so you can also look at it if you want more explanation on the different indicators. So you can reach out to me, you can reach out to Julie, and especially you can reach out to Edel, that from now on will really lead on this topic, and will also be the focal point for all green teams in CARE. So yeah, we'll share in the email after the call, we'll share all our email addresses and the PowerPoint so that you can have access to it. So I hope it was helpful for you. It's a very short session. We'll organize additional one end of August. So you might come with additional question when you have started to fill out the forms. So do not hesitate to join again with your additional question. And with all those questions, we'll update the Q&A to make sure it reflects all the things that you need to know to work on that. Yeah, and thank you very much for working on that. We know it can be extra work, but we really think it's needed if we want to be transparent and take action to reduce our emission and walk the talk. So thank you for your work on that, because we know it can be tedious and difficult. So yeah, thank you very much, and have a good day, and do not hesitate to reach out to us whenever needed. Bye-bye.
Right, thanks.
Bye.
Thank you very much, Aurélie.